Greetings, God's people. You are listening to Let's Chat About It Tea Party. I am your host, Dee Russell, and it's tea time. Today's tea party topic is mental health. God's people, we have a special guest joining us today. Allow me to introduce you to certified trauma therapist, Dr. JaQuinda Jackson of Jackson Consultants, located in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Hi, Dr. Jackson. It's great having you here with us today.
How are you? I'm glad to be here.
Okay, well, tell our viewing and listening audience a little bit about Jackson Consultants.
So I am a certified trauma therapist. And what that means is that I specifically work with individuals who have experienced a wide range of trauma, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, grief, anxiety. And oftentimes people don't realize that anxiety is a trauma response. And so I work with individuals who have experienced various traumas.
Okay.
And the work is grounded in trauma-focused techniques in which the individual is able to reflect on a specific trauma that they have experienced in order to overcome it and to develop effective coping skills.
Okay. Okay. So your training and back in education, how did you get started in your practice and what made you want to do this?
So in undergrad, I didn't know what I really wanted to do, quote unquote, with life. I knew that I liked to talk to people, and I fell in love with a sociology class, and sociology is just like the study of people.
Mhm.
So I kind of took that route in regards to interning with different nonprofits in the area, and I fell in love with the work. So I moved to DC and furthered my career, in which I ultimately got my doctorate in counseling psychology.
Oh, great. That's really great. So what's your practice that you started in Simpsonville? Did it take you a while to get that started and to build on your clientele?
Yeah, so it took me a while. Actually, when I moved back home, because I'm originally from Simpsonville, South Carolina. So
Mhm.
moving back home from DC, I worked in the social services. So I worked in with what we call the Department of Social Services, DSS, which covers a lot of family work. So because I had that position, I was already involved in the community. I knew like the different community agencies and what they provided. So in building my private practice, I kind of reached out to different organizations just to say like, hey, I'm out here. These are the services that I offer. And my practice blew because of that.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. You know, Dr. Jackson, I ran across a scripture from Psalm 77, chapters 1 through 5, and it says, "I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. You know, when I read that scripture, I envisioned someone that had a traumatic experience. I think about those times where I cried out to God when I was trying to handle my daughter's illness and death. When you hear this scripture, is it a resemblance of what your patients are feeling?
Yes. And in hearing it, I think it's the it's the ultimate surrender of I'm going through and I need help. And I know I can't do it on my own.
Mhm.
I think culturally, when we think about mental health and when we think about therapy, there's a cliche. But just like we believe that God blesses the doctor's hands, God can also to bless the therapist. And I believe that my gift is God given. I believe that I'm a vessel in which God works through me. So when people do come to me for help, and even if I can't help them myself, but I'm able to provide some type of resources to them, um, to me, I don't take that ask lightly because
Yeah.
I know it's the ultimate surrender. When people ask for help, I know it's the ultimate surrender.
Yeah, that's amazing because you know that I really truly believe that you have to be a special person to take in so much. So I can imagine the emotional strain of how you feel at the end of the day. So tell our audience, how is it, what is a typical day like for a therapist?
So I am able to set my schedule now, which has not always been the case. So I'm blessed that I'm able to do that. So I start seeing clients like 8 in the morning, and then I take my last client at 5. However, I make sure that I structure in breaks to kind of
Hmm.
decompress, um, to pour myself out, to get poured into, so that I make sure that I have a healthy balance. Because again, people
Hmm.
are telling me, their stories, and
Hmm.
oftentimes, we go through the emotions together. So making sure that I take care of myself. So I see
Yeah.
clients, um, and if I have clients who have different agencies involved, like if
Hmm.
somebody's course or have like some type of legal
Hmm.
involvement, I make sure that I follow through and that I collaborate
Hmm.
with, all of the parties involved, because I understand that my client is not one dimensional. They
Yeah.
exist in various environments.
Okay. So, Dr. Jackson, how do you decompress? Who is there for you to be your therapist?
So I have my own therapist that I check
Hmm.
in with. I also too have colleagues who
Hmm.
have scheduled time during the week to check in, and
Hmm.
kind of, rather than talk about quote unquote work, we just kind of talk about life.
Uh-huh. That's good. That's good. You know, I feel that there is a stereotype with the African American community where some of us, well, it could be possibly the older generation, feel that we aren't supposed to see therapists because that's seen as a negative. How do you break that stigma of Black people coming starting to see therapists?
Honestly, I'm very neutral. I tell people all the time, like, you can't push anybody into
Hmm.
getting help, because the only way therapy works is what you put into therapy. There has to be some type of vulnerability that comes into play, and for some people, it's hard to get there, and or it takes them a while to get there. And I'm comfortable with having the conversation in that we all need somebody neutral.
Yeah.
And I always, because the next thing people say, well, I know where to go, or I can bring it to the altar. But I believe that there has to be a dialogue. There has to
Hmm.
be a space where you can fully go through your thoughts. And I ask people, like, who in your network can do that? Like, who in your
Hmm.
friendship circle can do
Hmm.
that? And when
Okay.
they are able to say nobody, then they realize, like, hey, maybe I do need to go talk to somebody.
That's a good way to break into it and allow them to feel comfortable. Have you ever had a patient that when you came in there, they were hard to like break through?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And again, it's a process, and I kind of like work with them through it, because for me, even when they show up, that at least lets me know that they're invested and that they're trying.
Yeah.
And we live in a social media culture where there's a stigma around asking for help,
Hmm.
and that, people only, we only see the good of people, because people don't post their failures. They
Hmm.
don't they don't post their mess ups. They post what they want you to see. So there's a narrative in that. The reality of it is that we all need help.
That's true. I'm a firm believer of that, especially if you've experienced so many things in your life and you know you can't handle it. There's always someone there to listen, and it may not be a family member, it may not be a close friend, but at least you have that person out there that you can talk to. So I truly appreciate you and I appreciate all that you do.
Thank
So
you.
if there was one thing that you wish you had known before you began your career, what would you say that would be?
That change will come in its own way. I think and honestly, I believe it's the good and a bad thing. With this level of work comes a level of empathy.
Yeah.
And like you want, I mean, I feel for a lot of people, like you don't want to see anybody hurt. Like you don't want to see anybody go through anything bad.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it, some of that hurt and some of that pain is part of the process. And as a therapist, sometimes I have to let my clients like sit with it. And I oftentimes like want to make it okay, but the reality of it is that they grow through the pain and the hurt and they have to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you detach yourself from getting so vested in their lives? I know they have to come see you. I know they talk to you a lot. You probably have a schedule for each one of them. But how do you not, like if you have a child that you're seeing, how do you not want to just embrace that child and keep them with you all the time to protect them?
Well, and the reality, I look at it as just being a vessel.
Hmm.
I believe that I am the vessel that comes to plant a
Hmm.
seed. Whether I plant the seed weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, I'm the vessel that plants it. And then that there are other people along my client's life that will be a vessel and will plant the next seed.
Okay.
And so I don't shoulder the full responsibility of it
Hmm.
because that makes the work heavy and to myself like unfair.
Yeah.
Because again, I know I'm not in this alone, and the healing process is a process, but it's also to not only is it an individual process, but
Hmm.
there are different lessons that the individual has to get from different people in different places. And the therapy is the place where we come to process through it.
Yeah. I see a special glow over you when you talk about what you do. And I was going to ask you the question, how do you relate your Christian life to being a therapist? And I see it and also I hear it by the words that's coming out of your mouth. But how would you say you relate your Christian experience, your Christian life to being a therapist?
I say it's the like I get to do or I get to be the hand and feet of Jesus like every day.
Wow, that's really deep. That's really deep. Do you have a patient that touched your heart and tell me about that patient? I know you can't give me the intimate details about it, but is there that one or two patient that really touched your heart?
Oh yes. Um, and there are honestly quite a few that I mean, it's just the ability to watch somebody grow.
Hmm.
Like somebody come in and are broken or fragmented
Hmm.
and literally have trouble seeing beyond the moment that they come in to watching them flourish and grow. Some coming entrepreneurs, some transitioning careers, but finding like purpose in their life, and
Hmm.
I'm able to see it. So I have a few clients that I
That's
have
great. Hmm.
that
Are these lifelong patients, clients of yours, or
no, so on average, I work with clients, I would say on average 14 months.
okay?
And it's not always weekly, depending upon, so the initial client comes in, we do an assessment
Hmm.
and we figure out like where they are and we develop the treatment plan. So then it's like, okay, I'll see you weekly or bi-weekly, but we assess like every 3 months going forward.
Okay. Have
And
you ever
even
had to turn anyone away? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, and I was gonna say, even when clients do transition out, I make sure they're transition out with some type of other support. So whether it's like
Okay.
a support group, a
Okay.
church,
Hmm.
or something in the community, I make sure that they're connected.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Have you ever had to turn anyone away?
Oh yes,
Really? What
yes.
what is one of the cases where you had to say no, that you can't bring that client on?
Um, Honestly, the cases that I have had to turn away were people who would like call and like schedule an appointment and then miss the appointment or call like the day before and like want to reschedule the appointment, and it becomes like an ongoing pattern that lets me know that they're not ready. I assess the situation, but it lets me know, oftentimes it lets me know that they're not ready. And then clients who do start the process, but kind of, because I understand like life happens, but don't take the process seriously. Because again, I think therapy is something that you have to fight for. Like I did a tweet today, like checking in on everybody's mental health, because we all have mental health. Like we all have mental health. And so making sure that we create time, if not daily, at least once a week, that we take care of our mental health. So if clients don't take that seriously, then I put them on we have a conversation, like, I put them on probation. And then if they don't follow through, then I let them go.
Yeah. I guess it's sort of a waste of your time if they're not really serious about it. Speaking of tweet, you just said something about a tweet, and I see your social media posts with you and your boys, your beautiful boys, and you have it's the word, is it the word for the week or the word for
Monday, word of the week?
Yeah, and I love that. What inspired that?
Actually, it was my oldest son's idea. He told me one day that, like, Mommy, you know a lot of words. And I was like, I do? He was like, yeah. And he just, because he has his own YouTube page. And he kind of was like, let's do something together. So what started as like something fun, like people asked me for.
It's the cutest video. I love it. I love it. Are you incorporating that into your therapy too? Is that all incorporated together, or is that something separate for you and them?
It's something separate, but even like some of my clients' parents will ask about the word of the week, because I want them to share with their kids too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the words are social emotional words. And it encourages like positive conversations just around like feelings that oftentimes 9 out of 10 times like parents don't talk to their kids about it.
Yeah. I think it's very inspiring that you do that, because you see most of the social media postings with the small kids where kids are either having a fashion show with the fancy clothes on, or they're dancing, or they're saying something funny, and you have some of them out there that their kids are actually using profane language, which I don't agree with. So this right here is very inspiring to me. I just love it. I love seeing y'all in the car, and your little boy in the back seat. Sometimes he's with it, and sometimes he's not. I guess it depends on how he's feeling, but it is just so cute. So what is the one thing that your program did for your client that you didn't expect?
Ooh. I would say really, I knew once God had given me this vision of opening up my own private practice, I knew that through him, I could do impactful work. But now I see myself doing impactful work on a higher level, which I never thought. Like now, because of social media, like I'm able to reach more people. And I've shifted my private practice to include creating virtual healing groups that I never could have imagined when I initially opened up my private practice in the very beginning.
Okay. So give us a little bit more information about that virtual group.
So healing communities came about during COVID, where we were isolated and we seen a lot of social injustice going on. And I wanted to create a safe space where people could really be raw and emotional and talk about their feelings, but I wanted the settings to be intimate. So I created Healing Communities, which is an online group
Okay.
that I run and that I manage. I'm getting ready to open up a mom healing group in the next few weeks, and I have it all across my social medias. But it's an intimate place where weekly we meet virtual and we have different prompts and we process through, like we have conversations, but we kind of process through our feelings and emotions and talk about it amongst the group.
Okay.
Um, but before we can get to like collective and do the group work, I am very strategic on the introduction, making sure that we as a group identify boundaries.
Mhm.
How do we want to be identified in the group so that we can grow, like we have an understanding of each other and
Okay.
we are in this brave space together?
Okay. So do you have a set group, or is it open for anyone?
Yes. So I close groups. I open a group, and once it's closed, and I usually leave groups open for a week or two.
Okay.
And once the groups are closed, oh, excuse me, once the deadline has ended for the groups,
Mhm.
I close them because again, I wanted it to be intimate. And
Right.
groups are more than 12,
Okay.
so that we're intimate. And we work together for a series of like this next group coming up, my mommy and group that I'm getting ready to launch. That is a 6-week group. And
Okay.
we meet weekly night. We meet weekly nightly for an hour.
Okay. And if our listening audience wanted to join this group, can you give them the information they need to have to join?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Jackson Consultings with an S LLC, and
Okay.
or Facebook called Jackson Consultings LLC. And all
Okay.
of my information is there. It's in my bio. You can get all of my information, my website, and also to information to the upcoming groups.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I'm gonna have to look into that. So if you
Yeah.
can do anything to improve mental health today, what would you do?
I want to make it a part of every conversation. I
Yeah.
believe mental health needs to be talked about in the workspace, in the education space, in the medical space. I think we talk about mental health when people's mental health is negative or people are struggling.
Hmm.
I believe that with mental health, we can be proactive and not reactive all the time.
That's great. That's great. Are you familiar with the football player Antonio Brown?
Yes.
And there's a lot of people out there that's saying that he has issues. There are a lot of people out there that's seeing the negative part about it, but I truly believe he does have suffers with some type of mental health. And a person like that, how would you reach them?
Honestly, it would just be conversation, like
Uh-huh.
building trust. Cause I mean, specifically him, like, we've seen the cycle.
Yeah.
And what happens? He does something wrong and everybody leaves him. And so
Yeah.
for him, it lets me know that his support system is not as stable. But you
Okay.
build trust and you begin to plant the seeds of, hey, maybe we need to see somebody, and or helping them create some type of structure, some type of
Hmm.
self-care
Hmm.
structure in their routine. So maybe it's not necessarily going to see a therapist, because going to see a therapist can be a huge jump for some.
Right.
But maybe it's like committing to like a 15-minute check-in with a friend once a week and
Yeah.
consistently doing it, or like let's go work out for an hour on Thursday,
Hmm.
but being consistent with like personal friends,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then putting upon additional resources.
Yeah. It seems like right now maybe he don't have that personal connection with anyone. But so tell us some of the things that you're doing now. We have a few more minutes before the show, before we have to go. So what's next for Dr. Jackson?
What is next for Dr. Jackson? I believe in that I will continue to be able to run successful healing groups.
Okay.
I really want to touch more people in regards to creating, I won't necessarily say safe places, but brave places where people can show up and be authentically them. And then I also too, and I'm speaking this into existence, that I
That's
will be
right, girl. You do that.
platforms to
Mhm.
talk about mental health and the need for mental health to be incorporated in everything.
Speak it into existence. That's how you do it. Because I see it. I see great things for you, great things to come. So in our time is almost up. But once again, I would like for you to go ahead and give our listening audience your information again. That way they can try to stay in touch with you or either look you up on Instagram or Facebook. Can you
Yes.
give us your information one more time?
Yes. So on Instagram, I am Jackson Consultings LLC.
Okay.
On Facebook, I am Jackson Consultings and Dr. JaQuinda, JaQuinda Jackson.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. I really enjoyed talking to you. I wish you the best. I know that your business is going to grow. I have no doubt about that. Um, and maybe soon, maybe closer to maybe mid year, we can check on you again, see how things are going with you, invite you back on the show. Okay.
Yes.
And my time is up, God's people. It's been a pleasure having tea with you. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. Reach out to me on Instagram at Chat with Dee Russell or check me out on my Facebook page, Tea with Dee. This is Dee Russell, living my life on God's terms. Until we meet again, may the Lord be with you.